All right. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone had a fantastic Thursday. We are so excited and happy to have everyone here with us tonight to talk about healthy communication. I will introduce myself. My name is Jasmine Julian, and I'm the founder of Revitaled Reintegration Services. Tonight is our first ever event. This is our first event online and in person. We're a very new organization, and we're very excited that you are here with us tonight to enjoy this milestone with us. So before we get into the presentation and the workshop, I will just give everyone a quick heads up on a couple of things. First, we are going to be recording tonight's session for our resource library. So if you're not comfortable with being recorded, please keep your camera and microphone off. Alternatively, if you're not comfortable with being a part of the meeting while it's recording, even if you do have your camera and microphone off, you can leave the meeting if you choose. And you can also send us an email at info@revitaled.ca, and we will send you a link to this session after it's been posted. This way you don't have to miss out on anything. And I will also provide everyone with a disclaimer. We are not experts in any way on the topic that's being discussed. We're not communication coaches. The information that we're sharing is based on our experience, knowledge, and research in this line of work. So if you'd like to be connected with a counselor or coach who can provide you with that formal support, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and we will connect you with the best services available. So if you're just joining us, I will share this information with everyone tonight. So we are going to be using Slido.com. It's a new fun app I wanted to input into tonight's workshop. We are going to be asking some questions, gauging your thoughts on the topics that are being discussed. So if you go to Slido.com and insert the code that is here on the screen, then you can be inputted into our activities room and you will have access to the questions that we're asking, as well as the option to respond if you wish as well. So the code that you need to input is 669428. And if you have a QR code scanner on your phone, you can just select or open that and then scan the QR code on the screen as well. All right, so this is our topic tonight, how to build healthy communication skills. So before we get started, I will give everyone with a bit of information on Revitaled, and I do want to do a land acknowledgement as well. As we all know, that today is Canada's first ever National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and I'm not an Indigenous person. I cannot speak on behalf of Indigenous communities. However, I can see that it has been a tumultuous year for Indigenous communities in Canada. Oh, I'm so sorry. Someone asked to see the code again. All right, I'm going to actually type that in the chat for everyone and pull it up as well. So the code for tonight is 669428, and I will also input that in the chat as well. Okay. Yes, so today is National Truth and Reconciliation Day, and again, it has been an extreme year for Indigenous communities in Canada. We have all seen that way too many Indigenous bodies were unearthed from the grounds of formal residential schools, and reminding us of Canada's horrific legacy of colonialism. I find that acknowledging today to be Truth and Reconciliation Day is a great step in the right direction. However, there is more work that needs to be done. And this can both be said for legislator and the community. So we ask that you join us in reflection as we recognize and remember Indigenous history in Canada and the unjust treatment that Indigenous populations face today. And we hope that we can all work together and communicate with Indigenous communities and see the work that we can all do to work towards true truth and reconciliation. So this is our land acknowledgement, and I will give it just a quick read. So Revitaled Reintegration Services acknowledges that the land we are on in Durham Region forms a part of the traditional territory of the Mississaugas and the territory that is covered by the Williams Treaties. We are thankful to be welcomed on the lands of the people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We respectfully acknowledge that the history of these lands is scarred by the mistreatment of Indigenous people, and we dutifully recognize our responsibility to work together with Indigenous communities to achieve reconciliation, unity, and equity. And this is our mission statement. So again, I do want to give everyone just a brief introduction on who Revitaled is. I'm sure a lot of you have never heard of us before, but I'm happy to give everyone some information on who we are and what we do. So Revitaled Reintegration Services is a small nonprofit that aims to provide support for individuals exiting provincial and federal correctional institutions so that they're able to successfully reintegrate back into society. We also provide support to those who have received non-imprisonment sentences, such as probation, and we're also committed to providing support for families and individuals affected by violence and crime. Our work is comprehensive, but ultimately it is our mission to produce safe and healthy communities for everyone. We want to help individuals heal from traumatic experiences and produce solutions that can ensure that those who have committed offenses don't reoffend. And it's through this process that we hope to accomplish our mission, which is on the screen for everyone to see. Now, we aim to accomplish our mission by providing supports both in-house and through referrals in the areas of mental health and counseling, housing, employment, and everyday living assistance. Our newest program, HAL, stands for Hope After Loss, and it connects individuals impacted by crime with tools and resources that they can use to determine their next steps, heal, and get on their feet. So this is our team. We are very young. We just launched at the beginning of August. I'm the founder of Revitaled. Chetty is our operations director and our counseling lead. He will be leading our informal mentorship counseling program, which is called our Counseling Ship program. And with me tonight, I have Tashana, who is our administrative manager.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so I'm going to give everyone a quick rundown. We're going to be talking about what communication is, what it looks like, how we can improve our communication skills, how we can communicate with different types of people. So people with different personalities, such as passive personalities, as well as different kinds of people we might have in our lives, like our significant other, children, youth. And at the end, we hope to have some time. If anyone has any questions, we will be answering them at the end, but we will also take some breaks during the presentation so that we can ask you questions and so that you can ask us questions as well. So what is communication? I'm going to hand it over to Tashana in just a bit, but I'm going to launch our first poll for tonight on Slido. So what do you think communication means? And I have my phone as well, so I'm going to participate. If you just go to slido.com and you put in our code 669428, then you will have access to this poll and you can put in your response if you wish to participate. I'll give everyone a little break to do that if they wish to participate. All right, Tashana, what do you think communication means? I know this is your area of expertise for the evening, but do you have any thoughts that you wish to share?
For me, communication could mean a number of things because there's different ways to communicate, but I'll focus on healthy communication. So for me, healthy communication is connecting with someone in whichever way that you can, whether it's verbal, physical, emotional. Eye contact, for me, that's healthy communication, connecting in a positive way.
All right. So I'm going to put my answer in Slido. I think healthy communication means speaking and sharing ideas. All right. Oh, my apologies. We have another response as well. Being able to understand what someone is communicating to you and being able to express yourself to someone. I like that answer. You never really think of communication as being a form of self-expression, but it is. All right. I'm going to hand it over to you, Tashana. What is communication?
All right, so I'll just, again, like our founder Jasmine says, we're not claiming to be experts in any way, shape, or form, but these are the things that we've learned, and we want to share them with you. So communication is a process of sharing information. Again, it could be verbal, it could be nonverbal, eye contact could also be a form of communication. For those who can't see, then they've got Braille. For those who can't speak, then they've got sign language. So it's just a way of sharing information from one source to another and communicating one sender, a message to another sender. So again, eye contact. It could be communication, that you walk up to someone and you touch them on the shoulder in a nice manner, with permission, of course. That's sending them a message that, yes, you want to communicate with them, or just a friendly gesture to say hi. So again, the process of sharing information from one source to another, and then just communicating a message from one sender to another. That's the general definition of communication. All right, Jasmine, next slide. And the myths about communication, as you can see on the screen there, and the answers are also written there. Communication is always verbal. Absolutely not. There are many ways to communicate your message, and there are different methods. Again, we speak about the eye contact. We speak about sign language. We've spoken about the body language. Even the tone of your voice could also relay a message. If it's harsh, then obviously the message they're conveying to you is not a positive one. In a softer tone, a more inviting tone, then it's a positive message, and that pulls you into the conversation. So there are different methods of communicating. And everyone does not communicate in the same manner. Again, going back to the examples that I've given to you above. Being a good communicator is a natural thing? Absolutely not. I know some folks that have absolutely terrible stage fright. Do not ask them to speak in public. It will not happen. And then there's some folks who they're a natural at it, and they're very comfortable. They have an excellent way of presenting themselves. And then again, there are some folks who it takes some work, and it takes a lot of preparation. So being a good communicator is not a natural thing, but if you're not, that's okay as well. This is something that you can work on to build and grow and mature in. Okay, Jasmine, thank you. So types of communication, we've spoken about that as well. Spoken and verbal, that's done face-to-face, telephone conversations. Then we have written, and for the young folks, we know young people do not like to telephone calls anymore. Everything's about texting and emails and social media. Body language is also a form of communicating. A gesture, how you act, the way you stand also could communicate to someone that you're very, you have a great self-confidence. For those who slouch forward, then they're a little bit more shy or introverted. And then there's the visual. You could do a dance and actually relay a message as to what you want the audience to know, graphics, images, and charts. So different methods for visual communication. Jasmine? Why is good communication skills important? Because it's a powerful tool, absolutely. To relay what you want to relay, if you're doing a presentation, you need to understand exactly what your message is. And then whatever tool that you use to communicate that message, it needs to stand out. It needs to pop, in other words, so that whoever your audience is, They have no idea what they're walking into when they walk into a meeting, but the images that they're seeing and the presentation that's taken forward, they know exactly what's going on. Even the images, if there's no words to it, just the images on the screen could actually portray what they want to say. So strong communication, and it is a powerful tool. Jasmine?
All right, thank you so much, Shoshana. That was an excellent recap of what communication is. So I'm going to launch our second Slido poll. Oops. Actually, I will not be launching my second Slido poll, but I will be asking a question. And that question is, what is a challenging part of communication for you? Now, this might feel like a little personal question, again, because communication is something that we use daily. We want to be good at it. We want to be experts at it. But like Tashana said, not everyone has that skill to think on the fly and put together something really eloquent and share it with others. That's me. I cannot think on the spot. If you ask me to tell you about any topic, I just can't do it. I need to be able to think and plan. Otherwise, I'm going to stutter and be all over the place. So that's my challenge. Tijana, are you able to share with us what your challenge is for communication? And anyone else as well. You could either put it in the chat if you'd like to, or you can unmute yourself, but feel free to share with us.
For me, my challenge is I find it very difficult public speaking. That's a hang up for me. I get very nervous and I talk really fast. So if at any point during this meet, you guys see me doing that, you can always put it in the chat. Just remind me to slow down, because I am a really fast talker and I have to consciously remind myself to slow down. So for me, that's my hiccup. When I get nervous, I talk really fast.
I do that too. I do that as well. If anyone at any point in time wants to share what they feel is their weakness in communication, again, feel free to share it in the chat or even just unmute yourself and interrupt me. It's completely okay. So the reason, oh, we have actually Stephanie. Hi.
Hello. I find for myself, the challenges are different because of COVID. Like some of my clients, I meet them outside instead. So there's a lot of distraction. So it's kind of hard to bring the client back into focus when they're like, oh, hey, and then they're like, okay, what was I saying? And it's hard to bring it back home. So my challenge too is I can get unfocused also. So it's like, okay, how do I stay on point here, you know, with a direct question? So right now, meeting outside is a big challenge because people are just all over the map, and it's hard to bring them in and hone in on an issue, whether it's the housing, their health, or what do they need from me. So I find that quite a bit challenging. And then I get a little bit kind of ruffled up too. And I'm like, okay, get back to the point. So it is kind of hard depending on where you're at. You know, like I said, if I'm in their unit, then it's a different kind of conversation compared to we're meeting outside because of COVID. And, you know, how do you deal with that? So it is, to me, I find that as a difficulty, and I can get distracted also. They can say something and it's a good point, but I'm like, I need to stay here. And then I'll go off in a direction. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I lost my point. So that tends to be my problem. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I will add more here. Okay, the communication skills that I have a challenge when I listen someone concern and I can't help that person and I don't know how to give honest answer. I have the challenge and I say what word I can use to support this person talking about their concern.
Understand. Thank you, Kendra.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing. All right. So the reason why I asked this question is because the first step of improving your communication skills is recognizing and acknowledging that your communication needs improvement. It's not a bad thing at all to have this realization. In fact, recognizing that you're not good at something just means that you're human. Another part of recognizing that your communication needs improvement is committing yourself to make the changes that you want to make. This is a practical part of self-development. Without putting in the efforts to get the results that you want to see, you won't be able to grow. But this doesn't mean that you have to be hard on yourself. Learning is a forgiving process, and this process requires it requires you to, yes, hold yourself accountable for your mistakes, but also celebrate your accomplishments. The second step is engaging in active listening. And the purpose of active listening is to understand what people are saying in conversations. And this process is more than just hearing what they are saying, but it's also understanding and responding appropriately to what people are saying. So active listening requires you to build trust through listening by demonstrating that you are paying attention, receiving this information, and processing this information. And this can be done by mirroring what other people are saying through repetition. So rather than making assumptions about what you think people mean, you can clarify and summarize by using phrases such as this. So, okay, what I'm hearing you say is that you want me to put the milk in the fridge after I'm done using it. Am I correct? This also is an example of asking specific questions to understand what they are trying to say more. By asking these questions, we can ensure and demonstrate that we understand what the other person is saying and also affirm this as well. And also it's a reflection process as well. Active listening also includes non-imposing judgment on others and how they express themselves, how they communicate, as well as some of their quirks about communication. So that might be ums and ahs as well. Finally, active listening means letting the other person complete what they're saying without interruptions or dismissal of thought. Nonverbal communication and active listening go hand in hand. So I'm going to ask a question. You don't have to respond, but it's just a reflection question. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and you know that they're not listening because they have their eyes glued somewhere else? It could be like a TV screen or a phone. I will admit that I've been on both ends of that situation. And I say this to say that body language is powerful. It lets the people we're speaking to know how we feel about what's being said. So if someone has their arms crossed, they might be feeling tense or hostile to something that's going on around them, or perhaps even the thing that's being said to them. Maintaining attentive and active listening with your body consists of holding eye contact, maintaining good posture, nodding, and mirroring the body language of the speaker. So remember what I said earlier about not interrupting others when they're talking? That's a habit I have sometimes myself, but it's an example of using your filter. So exercising self-control is an important part of communication. We can't always just say what we want to say, how we want to say it, and when we want to say it. How we phrase our words is just as important as what we say. Thinking before we speak and empathizing with how we would feel in the other person's shoes is critical to using our filter and communicating in a way that is thoughtful and respectful of the person that we're speaking to. And I also mentioned earlier about asking questions as a part of active listening. Questions are important to ensuring that we understand what the other person is saying, but it can also be helpful to ask questions to ensure that we're getting our ideas across in a way that we want them to be received. I find that there is no shame in asking others if they understand what we're saying or if our thoughts make sense. I do this all the time because I know that I have that problem of explaining things in a confusing way when I'm not prepared. And also, constructive, helpful, positive criticism doesn't mean that we're failing, nor is it a sign of disrespect. This allows us to understand how we can grow and learn in the way that we want to. And finally, practice. It's an old saying, but it is true. Practice does make perfect. If you are going to a job interview, for example, practice your answers to potential questions. If you're going to be making a presentation, rehearse it. like I said, speaking out loud is a challenge for me. So I have to rehearse things over and over just to be comfortable enough in saying it. It's a tedious process, but I do it because I want to make sure that the people I speak to feel comfortable in what I'm saying and that they understand what I'm trying to say as well. So I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any questions. Okay. If not, then it's okay. And if you think of something later, again, the chat is open and available. So I'm going to break down our communications understanding a bit. And I want to do this because these tips were generated with the idea in mind that someone would be reintegrating back into society after a long period of time. And, they haven't been in their communities for a while and they were struggling with their communication. But I find that there is value in reviewing the communications basics because, again, when we're trying to build upon the skills that we already have, sometimes there's value in reverting back to the very bottom line of it all and trying to understand how we can improve the foundation of our approach. So I'm going to be starting with tone. So how we say things is just as important as what we say. I'm sure there's been situations where we receive a text and it seems like the other person is saying something mean. Maybe they use an emoji that sets an unsettling tone to their phrase. However, when we meet them in person, they explain that they weren't trying to be rude in any way, they weren't trying to be sarcastic, they were trying to be funny. So without tone and context, words are just words. We mustn't remember to, or my apologies, we must remember not to make assumptions about what we think other people mean when they talk to us, especially via text or message. When we make assumptions, we often find ourselves reacting in ways that are unhelpful to the situation. When reading text messages or emails that you're unsure of how to react to, make sure that you have a clear understanding of the context in which the message is being shared. Take a moment to reread that message, and if you still aren't sure, ask for clarification. When communicating in person, pay attention to the words that you're emphasizing, like capital or slanted letters in a text. Slowing down or emphasizing on parts of your speech, like this, will determine the way that others interpret your words and parts of speech that they pay attention to. Again, the context or situation people are talking about or in may affect the way that you are to interpret what they're saying. And now I'm going to talk about space next. And when I ask a question again, and again, you don't have to respond. It's just to get your thoughts going. So have you ever been in the lineup and someone is standing just a little too close behind you? I know for me, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I mean, it hasn't been the situation, or perhaps many of us haven't been in this situation since COVID started, but I feel like we all can recall maybe one or two times where that's happened. Well, it's a general rule of thumb that when you are in public and you are speaking to someone, especially someone that you don't know all too well, keep your distance. Generally, an arm's length is a good enough distance. And if you're in a particular situation with someone, perhaps a significant other, make sure you always ask first that it's okay to get closer and get in that personal bubble that they have. Note that the situation doesn't warrant consent. Always, or my apologies, only an uncoerced verbal agreement warrants consent. And that last rule also applies to touch as well. It applies to hugs and handshakes. Even if you notice that someone always reaches out and gives hugs or handshakes first, like an auntie, we all have a lovable auntie in our lives. Make sure that, you always check with that person first because it demonstrates respect for their space. And if you don't like it when someone touches you, know that you always have the right to say, no, I don't like that and it's not okay. Firmly and respectfully acknowledge that and say that you would appreciate it if they did not do that to you again. And always be considerate of the circumstances that would make touch uncomfortable for someone. Perhaps someone has been through a particular situation that would make them adverse to touch, even if it's just a gentle touch on the shoulder. For others, there are cultural practices that prohibit touch between people that you don't know too well. And maybe you're in a situation that doesn't permit touch, such as a school. There's many factors and circumstances that would prevent touch from happening. Nevertheless, always remember that if a person says that they don't want to be touched, it's not up to you to judge them for that or talk them into otherwise. Always be respectful of others' wishes. And honesty. And I have another old saying, I like to quote these from time to time, but this one is that honesty is the best policy, and this truly is the case. When you're trying to build a new relationship with someone, whether personal or professional, you want to be as transparent as possible. You don't want the relationship or no matter the context, whether it's your boss or a sibling, to be based on lies. Honesty is a demonstration of respect for the person that you're speaking to. And without this foundation of respect, a positive and healthy relationship will be difficult to form. And also know that trust is not owed, it is earned. Maintaining respect through honesty is a great way that you can maintain and build this relationship of trust. And keep in mind that trust is also a process. One kind act or good deed doesn't immediately build to trust. It's something that is ongoing and requires dedication and time. This process of building trust also includes demonstrating respect, appreciation, and politeness for others. And another old saying, I know I'm 3 for 3 tonight with those, but it is to treat yourself the way that you want to be treated. Our world will encourage us to look out for ourselves, but I'm sure, as we all know here, our community thrives on people taking care of one another. And another thing I would say about communication is that it is important to take accountability for our actions and to make this fact known. For the people that we work with at Revitaled, sometimes they feel like they're put in situations that limit their options. However, we always do have a choice, and sometimes our choices place us in really bad situations that damage our relationships with others. So the first step in making these reparations is to acknowledge that we made a bad choice. We do have to hold ourselves accountable if we want to make positive change in our lives. And communicating this realization is a way that we can work to rebuild trust. And finally, remember this formula. If you forget absolutely everything else for the evening, remember this. Listening and thinking is greater than speaking. Communication is all about sharing information, but how can we share the right information if we don't know what we need to be talking about because we're not listening? Especially in difficult situations where emotions are flying, it can be hard to listen and pause and think, but this is necessary. So I will pause myself and see if anybody else has any questions at this time. Okay. So I believe this is my last slide before I hand things over. And now I will say a quote to kind of frame this discussion on negative feelings. I heard a quote once upon a time, and it said, "Change your thoughts, change your world." Our thoughts have the power and the ability to shape our interactions with our worlds. Positive thoughts make us happy and more interactive. On the other hand, negative thoughts have the power to leave us feeling badly about ourselves and our communities. So in turn, when we experience these negative feelings, our communication skills are affected, and we don't always communicate with others in the best way that we could. So when feeling negative feelings, these are some of the things that we can do to help us recenter, reevaluate, and refocus. So when we're feeling angry, we can take a moment to cool down before speaking. So when we're upset, we get blinded by our anger. We say all sorts of things that we don't mean. Sometimes we think it's okay to say things intentionally to hurt other people. So that's why it's just the best thing to do is just calm down before responding in situations that are upsetting you. And again, use your communication skills. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm angry right now. I don't want to respond in a way that's going to upset you. So I'm just going to head out for a bit. I'm going to just go down. I'm going to go to my room and I'm just going to cool down. And maybe we can talk about this later. And another thing I've noticed, and sometimes I do myself, is exaggerate my words when I'm angry. So sometimes I say things like, you always forget to take out the trash. You never listen to me. And this can be unfair to the person we're speaking to. This all or nothing type of thinking can make the other person we're speaking to feel like we're making accusations that aren't true, which just adds more fuel to the fire. And again, the best way to solve it is just to cool down and think. Pause and think before we respond in a way that could potentially cause more conflict to the situation. But I would also say that cooling down doesn't mean we're walking away and we're not finishing the conversation, because that doesn't solve the situation in any way. It prolongs it. It suppresses negative feelings. And we don't want to do this to ourselves. We want to be able to share our feelings, and we want to provide room for others to share their feelings as well. So the best way to do that is to create positive spaces, and stepping back and cooling down creates these positive spaces by removing negative feelings from the space that we're communicating in, and removing the negative feelings from ourselves as well. And if you find that you are coping with anger, expressing it in unhealthy ways, note that it's not a bad thing to seek professional help. It's actually a good thing, because you are acknowledging that a part of yourself needs growth and that you want to take the active steps to make it better. So if you don't know how to get started, again, people like myself and Tashana are here, Revitaled is here, and there are many other organizations that will connect you with the best resources possible to receive that help if that's what you choose to do. So with feelings like dumb or stupid, I decided to put this on the screen again because the people that we work with at Revitaled, sometimes they come from backgrounds that don't have a lot of traditional education within the school system, and that can take a hit on their self-esteem. So they often find themselves not wanting to participate and communicate in activities because they feel like they are dumb or that they're stupid. So I'll give you a bit of my background. I used to work in education sector for a little bit, and something that I would often hear kids telling themselves is that they were dumb or stupid because they were working on a question or an assignment and they just wouldn't get the answer. So I will say that humans need affirmation and validation. That is absolutely embedded within every single one of us. From the moment that we're babies, we need the cheers and the claps from the people around us so that we know that we're doing something right for the first time. And I feel like we still need that today, absolutely, each and every one of us. So when we tell ourselves that we're dumb, or we use negative language like I can't do this, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, we're shutting ourselves down. The key to growth is understanding that we're all learning and that we all learn differently. In situations where you find yourself not accomplishing things at the rate that you would like to, know that you can do it by trying again and taking a different approach. So if you worked independently before, try getting assistance from someone. If you're struggling to communicate using words, try using pictures or examples to help explain your thoughts and ideas. The bottom line is just to not give up. Don't give up and be forgiving with yourself. And feelings of depression. So I believe there was this quote. It was either from, or not this quote, my apologies. It was a statistic from either CAMH or Ontario Shores. And it said that every 1 in 5 Canadians experiences a mental illness or an addiction problem at some point in their lifetime. So despite what our communities think, depression doesn't mean that you're weak, and it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. Depression impacts many people, and with the pandemic isolating so many of us to our homes, we feel even more alone or misunderstood. And I say this just to acknowledge the fact that if you feel alone, you are not alone. And the most important thing is to talk about how you're feeling. Some people prefer to handle things on their own because of shame or stigma that they're experiencing within their communities. I know within, for example, within the Black community, there is a lot of stigma towards mental health because, you know, if you experience a mental health issue, that means you're weak. But we know that's not the truth. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit. My apologies. Some people choose not to talk about what they're experiencing because of examples like I just gave. There's shame and there's stigma associated with mental health issues. They do have that right to not talk about it if they choose to do so. However, the things holding you back from life will continue to hold you back unless you talk about it and set it free. There is strength in vulnerability because it's not easy. We all want to have our feelings validated, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we recommend speaking with someone that you trust in a non-judgmental environment. And again, there are many organizations such as Revitaled that can provide you with that assistance and tools and resources that you can use so that you can address any concerns that you might have and get on a path that you want to see yourself on. All right, so we do have another Slido poll before I hand over things to Tashana. And what do you do to relax and de-stress when you feel negative thoughts? So you're feeling angry, you're feeling upset. What do you do to calm yourself down, to recenter yourself and refocus? I will share mine. I do absolutely nothing at all. I grab my favorite snack, I hop on my couch or on my bed and I watch Netflix and I just forget about things for a few hours until I've calmed down and I'm ready to talk about it again or tackle it again. So again, if you want to participate in this Slido poll, you can join at slido.com and the code is on the screen. So 669428. In the meantime, Tashana, I'm going to ask you, what do you do to calm down? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm muted there for a second.
Yeah.
So I like watching anything that's funny. So I will go to the TV and just find something that will make me laugh. And that works for me every time.
Absolutely. Humor. I think there's like endorphins or something like, or maybe I'm thinking about working out.
Endorphins, that's right.
All right, so we got one. I take a walk or listen to some music. That's good. Absolutely. There's something very calming about just, you know, the air, clean air hitting your face, maybe more so in the summer than the winter, but absolutely walking and listening to music, always a good thing. And it's all comes back to self-care too. Just taking care of yourself, knowing your limits, and when you need to take a step back to ensure that you are the best that you can be so that you can communicate positively and share that positivity with the people that you're talking about. All right. If you have any more thoughts or questions, please share them in the chat. I'm going to hand things over to Tashana for our next section.
All right. So what I'm going to be talking about is how to deal with different personalities. Communication, even though it sounds like a simple word, it's a huge topic, and we could talk about it for hours and still not delve into all of it. Again, we don't claim to be experts in good communication, but these are just some of the tips that we've learned And we hope at the end of this presentation that you walk away with some usable tools that you can use in any aspect of your life. The first, Jasmine, if you would show me the next slide, please. We're going to talk about how to communicate with your spouse. So number one, when you're trying to develop good communication with your spouse, take turns speaking. So you see a list of them, a list of things here. I'm not going to go through everything. I'm just going to pick a few things and talk about it. But here's a list that you can pull some ideas from. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is when you're communicating with your spouse, take turns speaking. It is work to listen, yes, and don't rehearse. So I've known some folks that, okay, well, I'm going to say this to her and I'm going to say that to her. But what you end up doing is you're focusing on what you rehearse in that imaginary conversation that you had with your spouse, and you're not focusing on what your spouse is actually saying. So the listening part is totally exited the conversation, and you're just waiting for that moment and that gap that you can jump in to say what you've rehearsed. So rather than rehearse the conversation that you want to have with your spouse, when the communication is not that good, let the real emotions flow in that moment. You speak from the heart rather than focusing on the rehearsed conversation, because the listening part is extremely important. And we mentioned this before, where repeating what you've heard also helps in that conversation. So I heard you say this, or I heard you say that, and repeat what your partner says, whether it's your husband or your boyfriend or whatever the relationship is. That tells them that, okay, she really heard what I said, or he really heard what I said. And then you move forward from there. And no one wants to be told that they're wrong, right? It's a human factor. No one wants to be told that they're wrong or what they said was hurtful. But it's important to hear that part of it, because that's how you learn from your mistakes, and that's how you grow, and that's how you change those bad habits. You have some bad habits. I've been married for a number of years, and one of my issues was listening, which is why we looked into the topic. My husband always tell me that I don't listen very well. So that's something that I had to work on. And that was one of the tips that I use in my own personal life as well, is to repeat the conversation. I heard you say this. Is that what you're trying to tell me? And then accept ownership when he says, okay, well, what you said was hurtful. Okay, don't do that again, because you don't want to hurt your partner. That's not what you're in the relationship for, right? Is to hurt your partner. The next thing is to don't use hurtful statements that you're going to regret, because scars do hurt. And sometimes they hurt so deeply that they don't go away, right? We all know how to push our partner's buttons, right? We know what messes with them, what pushes that button to really hurt them. That's not what we want to do. So stay away from those statements that we're going to push that button. Yes, in the heat of the moment, the conversation's going, he's saying something hurtful, she's saying something hurtful, and you want to get in there and you want to say something that's going to jab at them. But again, you might end up saying something that's going to leave a scar.
Recording in progress.
And that's not what you want to do. Let me just get back to the presentation. Sorry about that. So we're talking about hurtful statements and how they can leave a scar. And again, the key thing is to never use that statement that is going to hurt your partner, again, because you don't want those scars to run deep. Statements can be really hurtful. Walk away in that moment. And I believe Jasmine mentioned before, just because you walk away from that conversation at the moment does not mean that you're sweeping the problem, the situation under the rug. It just means that you're stepping away for that moment so that you can calm down, that you can approach your partner in a calmer manner, and again, solve the problem. Do not compare your partner to someone else. I've heard many folks say that, well, he says, my mother does something better, or my mom does better cooking, or even my ex was better at this. Those are hurtful words. Those are words that is going to be a relationship killer. Do not compare your partner to someone else, especially not your ex. Because what they will hear is not the part where, well, she can cook better or she can do this. They're going to hear my ex is better than you, or my mother is better than you, or my brother or my friend Tom is better than you. They're not going to hear anything else after that part. So remember, don't compare your partner to anyone else. In that moment, again, you're angry, they're angry, walk away and come back when it's a little calmer and the atmosphere is a little bit better, because those words are going to be very hurtful and they're going to cause some damage that might be irreparable for your relationship. Next point is, do not be afraid to apologize. Saying I'm sorry is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity. We all make mistakes, and it's okay to accept ownership and say, you know what I did was wrong. It shows that you care enough to say sorry, because no one is right all the time. And some folks really do believe that they never make mistakes and they're never wrong. That's not accurate. Everyone makes mistakes. And so it's okay to say that I'm sorry. They want to hear that you're sorry, because they know you recognize that you said something or did something that's hurtful, and then you want to rectify that. And another thing when you're dealing with your spouse is tell them that you love them. Do not assume that they know. Everyone needs affirmation. Everyone wants to be loved and validated. And even the strong, macho kind of personality in a man acts as if he's all macho and he doesn't need affirmation. Yes, they do. Males need affirmation as well. They need to know that they are valued and they're important and they're special, just like a woman in a relationship needs to know that she's beautiful and that she's wanted. So do let them know, I love you. Little tips such as leaving a note on the fridge, or they're going to work, leave a note in their bag, or even put it in your calendar. It sounds weird, but you have your phone, put it in your phone, select the day. On this day, remember to tell Tom I love him, or remember to tell Joan that she's important, or remember to tell Mary that she's beautiful. After a while, even though it's in that calendar, after a while, it becomes the habit, and it's a good habit to develop. So remember, always remind your partner how valuable and important they are. Don't use little things to jab at them. Walk away in that moment. Don't tell them how someone else is better than them. Again, those will kill your relationship, and that's not what you want to do. So along with some of the notes that you see there, those are some of the tips that I wanted to highlight in how to help build a good relationship and good communication with your spouse. I know that's a lot of information, but does anyone have a question for me?
No, you are all good in the chat so far.
All right. The next personality is a passive personality. Now that is someone that is low self-esteem, lack confidence. They're looking for affirmation all the time. I had one young lady that I knew for quite a while, very passive personality. She was always putting herself down. Even when we were in university at the time, even when she had excellent grades, it was never good enough. Oh, I could have done better. I'm stupid. And she had a lot of relationship issues because of this. And oh, he didn't call me back. Why isn't he calling me back? And what's wrong with me? And so she took that onto herself. And it was the same story over and over and over. And after a while, you start to realize, okay, then there's an issue, a deeper issue going on here than just, what you see on the surface. So these folks need to be, they need to be rubbed all the time, because there's something going on the inside that makes them feel like their self-image is low, self-esteem is low, and they're looking for external validation. One of the points is don't encourage that behavior. Not to ignore them, but when they start on that negative tangent, don't go on and, oh, no, you're not, you're this, you're that, because they're not hearing you at that time. they're saying these things, some of them is to get that affirmation from you. So they want to pull that, yes, you are good, and yes, you're beautiful, and yes, you're great. They want to pull that from you. So don't delve on that bandwagon and encourage that negative behavior, because there's a dependency there that you want to change. You are a friend to them, you're a colleague, you're a family, you want to change that. And you want them to start making decisions on their own, right? Because again, they don't feel like anything they say is good enough. When they step away from that moment and they're not expecting that affirmation, that's when you want to give it to them. So they're on to another topic and it's something positive. And then you want to jump in and say, you know what, Mary, you look fabulous today. Or you know what, John, you did a presentation and it was absolutely amazing. They're not expecting that affirmation at that moment because they're out of that negative space. But you give them that affirmation and you give them that positive feedback when they're least expecting it. So you don't encourage the negative behavior. And you want to encourage their contribution through open questions and ask their opinion. You want to draw them into decision making. If you're in a group situation, you want to encourage them to contribute. Again, they feel like nothing they say is going to be taken seriously. Their opinion doesn't matter. No one is going to agree with what they're saying. So you want to pull them into conversations and encourage them to say, you know what, I'm asking your opinion because I want to know. What do you feel about this? What's your opinion on this? You want to let them know that they need to voice their opinions, feelings, and ideas. You want to encourage them to do that because it's valuable. You're asking them these things because you want to know. And you value their opinion and their thoughts. And when you do ask these questions of them, do engage with them, such as eye contact. Again, Jasmine mentioned this before. If you're speaking with someone and you're looking over on the left-hand side, you're not making eye contact with them. That's showing them that you didn't really ask them their opinion because you want to know. You're just asking their opinion, but you're not really interested in the answer that they want to give you. So you want to show them that you are listening to what they're saying and that their opinion matters. And don't shoot down ideas. Their self-esteem is already low. So when you shoot down their ideas, it's like, well, why did I bother answering in the first place? No one really cares what I think. Even if you don't agree with them, and you are going to not agree with everything everyone says, but then you want to find a middle ground. So rather than, well, that doesn't really make any sense what you're saying. It's more like, okay, well, I don't really agree with that part of it, but I agree with this part of it. So let's come together and find a middle ground. A middle ground where part of your idea and part of my idea, we can meld that together and we can come up with a compromise. So rather than shoot down their ideas, you find that middle ground, part of what they say, part of what you say, you meld that together. And again, that builds their self-confidence because they'll remember for next time when their opinion's asked, they're like, oh yeah, well, I did the last time and John liked what I have to say. So let me move forward and let me try that again. You want to help them build their self-esteem, their self-image, but you don't want to encourage their passive behavior. And that's just some of the tips that we've come up with that I've used in my own life as well. Any questions? All right. The next one is irrational and aggressive personalities. And I have known some of these personalities and I have worked with some of these personalities. And one of the things that I had to learn was to not take it personally, because when someone comes into the workplace or any environment, you do not know what's going on in their personal lives. So sometimes it's not that they are upset with you. It's just there's a lot on their plate, if you want to use those words. There's a lot going on in their lives. And unfortunately, you're the person that they ran into, and then you become the brunt of whatever is going on with them. So we have to remember, however, that everyone's entitled to their emotions. They're entitled to be upset if they want. That includes anger. And acknowledge that, yes, they're upset, but you do not take ownership of the reason why they're upset. You're not the reason why they're upset. whatever the issue is, you're not going to bring that on to yourself. They're not upset with you. Again, sometimes it's the situations that they're dealing with. So try not to take it personally. And then these are some of the tips that I had to use myself as well. And before responding to their outburst, again, take that moment. You know what, Mary, I'll come back to you on that. Or John, I'll come back and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Take a pause, avoid answering them because they're upsetting. They're going to upset you with their anger and their behavior. And then you're going to become defensive because, you know, why are they yelling at me? I didn't do anything. So you don't want to answer in a defensive manner or an aggressive manner. So the best thing to do is step away in that moment, walk away, and then address it later. And the important thing is to keep things calm. So the volume is going through the roof. Okay, Mary, why don't we take a moment because you're getting really loud and we don't want to alarm anyone. So why don't we just calm down for a moment and let us communicate a little with a lower volume and try and see if that works. It doesn't work all the time because some folks are like, don't tell me that I'm angry and I'm shocked. You understand what I'm saying? It is, for some people, it just makes them even more upset when you try to bring them into a calmer space. So sometimes it does work. Just, okay, let's take a moment and let's calm down, or let's bring down the volume a bit, and you draw your voice down on a lower level, and hopefully they'll get the hint and they'll also bring it down to a lower level. And trying to find areas of agreement with this person. Again, whatever the issue is, maybe they feel that their opinion is not being addressed, or an issue that they brought forward is not being addressed. So we try to find a common ground. Rather than focusing on the disagreement factor, try to find something positive in that conversation that's happening. Find that common ground and find a solution that both can agree on. So, okay, John, what's the issue? And he's telling you, oh, well, I brought this to my boss and he doesn't agree with what I'm saying. Okay, John, so let's hear what your idea is. Tell me what your idea is, and let me hear and I'll give my opinion about what I think about it. He'll give you his opinion about what's going on. And you're like, you know what, John, that part makes really good sense. I agree with what you're saying on this part. This part you could need a little bit of work on, but this part, I like what you're saying there. That makes a lot of sense, and that will actually work. And sometimes, again, because again, it's no one's taking their opinions seriously, having you in that moment agree with one aspect of their statement or their pitch or their presentation, again, brings them into a calmer space. And it does work. It works most of the time. Again, one size doesn't fit all. Some folks, it just will not work, but with some folks, it really does bring them down, and their behavior and manner subsides. Questions, anyone?
So far in the chat, no questions.
All right. We're going to move on to young children. I'm not sure if anyone that's listening right now has any young children, but these are some of the ideas that the research that we've done, it does seem to assist and work when communicating with the younger children, not the teenagers, but the young ones. And the key to good communication with your child is to show that their thoughts are important and their feelings are valuable. It's important to set a time to talk and listen to your children because they need validation from you. They need to know that they're important. One excellent time to do that is at meals. Now, that's a problem I have in my household where we like to sit around the TV, watch TV and eat. Nobody communicates. So even if it's one day out of the week at family meals, if you can sit together, no cell phones, no tablets, just conversation. And if you have a little one that's in grade 5 or grade 6, you ask them about their day. So what happened at school today? You know, tell me about some of your friends. And I know when my youngest, she was younger than she is now, she's 13. She would tell me about her friends. I had no clue who was Sandra. I had no clue who was Grace, but she was so excited to tell me, well, Grace was wearing this t-shirt today, and it turns out that I have the same t-shirt. And it was such an exciting topic for her, even though it was about a t-shirt. But again, I would listen to the conversation and really, so is the same color as yours, or is there anything different? And then she would go on about, oh, well, the color was different, but it was the same t-shirt. And again, half of the conversation I didn't fully understand, but it was engaging her. And that was the key. Because when you have that constant engagement, you kind of get into a pattern with your children that if anything changes, whether it's at school, with their friends, they remember. You remember, okay, well, their personality is changing now. And all of a sudden they're more withdrawn, something is not right. So when you engage your children, then you understand when there is a change and a shift in their behavior, that something is not right. So you also should explain to your children that their emotions, expressing their emotions, it's okay. It's good to express their emotions, but it's how you express it. If they're upset, you don't hit, you don't bite, you don't scream, you use your words. So again, expressing your emotions, it's important. Tune into your children's body language as well. If they're more withdrawn than they normally are, if it's a chatty child and all of a sudden they don't want to talk to you, that's a change in their behavior. That is something that you need to look into. And it applies to everyone. When your child's talking, you repeat, you listen, you repeat, and then you respond. And you be a good role model for your child. That's how they learn good communication, is by watching what happens around them, with the adults around them. If you're respectful in the home, your child will behave respectfully. If there's a lot of anger, shouting, then the child's going to pick up on that, and they're going to think that that's the way it's normal to behave this way. So to build and foster good communication, they need to see that model inside of the home. All right. Questions, anyone? All right, we're going to move to our teens, which is a hot topic for a lot of people, because pretty much everyone that has teenagers says it's difficult to deal with teenagers because they're in that in-between stage. They're not fully grown, they're not young adults, but they're not young children as well. And their hormones are going and they want to be independent, but they still need guidance. So dealing with teenagers, it is challenging. But the same tips does apply as young children, where you need to foster trust. You need to foster that communication. They repeat what they hear a lot. So give them trust. And I'll give an example of, if your teenager wants to go out and hang out with some friends for a while, you give them some latitude, because you want to encourage them to be independent. So you give them some latitude, you give them a time frame to come home. They actually abide by the time frame that they come home. You have that conversation with them. You know, I told you to be home by 9 o'clock. You came home by 9 o'clock. Love that. I see that you're listening. I see that you respect the home. You respect the rules. I really appreciate that. And you foster, again, that good communication. They see that, okay, mom and dad really trust me. Well, you explain to them, I trust you because you showed me that you can be trusted by following the rules and being home by 9 o'clock. It shows that you have faith in them to make the right decisions. And that's another conversation to have with them. I trust you. I have faith that you'll make the right decisions. That boosts their confidence, and that boosts the communication that you have with them. You also need to validate their feelings as well, because it's important that they know that you're not being dismissive. They also need to know that they can come to you with anything that's going on with them, and that you're going to listen to them as well. You give praise when it does count. So again, coming back to, they come home by 9 o'clock, you give them praise for that. They do chores in the home, you give them praise for that. You boost their confidence, you boost their self-esteem, you let them know that they're valuable, they're important, and that's also shows good communication. And you do things together. Yes, they're teenagers. They're going to tell you that they don't want to hang out with you because you're my mom and you're my dad. Even though they're telling you that, it's not true. they need close relationships with their parents, their family, and their friends, and their circle, their inner circle. It's important because they need guidance. So even though they say they don't want to hang out with you, do something with them that they want to do. If it's music that they like listening to, sit with them and listen to some of the music and ask them to explain, okay, what is this person saying? I had to do that in my home because half of the content of the song, I don't understand what they're saying. It sounds like gibberish to me, but my teen understands the language. So, okay, what are they saying there? What does that mean? If it's movies they're interested in, then watch a movie with them, have a conversation through the movie. If it's video games that they're interested in, I cannot play video games. My thumb and fingers don't work on those things, but my kids love playing video games. So I'll sit and I'll watch them play video games and we talk about that. Engage in things that they enjoy doing. And you'll see a shift in them because they'll actually start talking with you. And that's what you want to do. You want to talk with them. You want to communicate with them. You want them to answer questions when you're asking questions. And you have to keep knocking on the door as well. Read your teen's body language. The same as with young kids. If there's a shift, they're spending too much time in their room, the only time you see them is when they come out to grab food and they disappear again, then you need to talk with them. Let them know that you're here. Let them know that you want to listen to what they have to say. And again, hopefully you get a breakthrough there where they actually tell you what's really going on with them. So those are some of the tips that I've learned that has worked with my family as well, and that will work with you, hopefully. Any questions?
No questions in the chat at this time, Tashana, but
All right.
I do have a tiny question. Maybe you can provide some insights for this. So
Okay.
say someone comes to you, they've recently exited a correctional facility and they are looking for tips on how to improve their communication. Do you have one thing that you might be able to tell them that can help them to build their skills?
For a releasee, it's just to boost their confidence and let them know that their opinion matters. It's important to be assertive but not aggressive and respect personal space as well, which you touched on earlier. Body language is also important for them to know, eye contact is important, and for them to listen. Again, coming from the environment that they're coming from, there's not a lot of positive communication. So just encourage them to listen to what folks are saying to them. The same thing that applies for everyone. You repeat and then you respond. And just appropriate language and express yourself in an appropriate manner. And people will have a positive feedback from you as well.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think you touched on a little bit that came to my mind, which is the formula I gave earlier. Listening and thinking is greater than speaking. So yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. I will go to the next slide.
So these are what we call the 5 R's. I'll run through them quickly, very quickly. Reaction, just be mindful of how you react when someone says something. It's just a natural body tendency to, your eyes pop open or your mouth pop open when they say something, but your reaction does speak. So just be careful of how you react when someone says something. Acknowledge someone's hurt. So when they do release whatever is going on with them, acknowledge it. It's a step in the right direction, as you can see that right there. Recenter. What solutions can we come up with? So get them back in the conversations. What solutions can we come up with that will work for both of us? And refocus, stay on topic. If they go off on a tangent about something else, bring them back to what is the conflict. What is the conflict about? Let's focus on that. And if they try to start to shut down, re-engage them in the conversation, ask their opinion about something, and that will bring them back into the conversation. And these are what we call the 5 R's. All right, Jasmine?
Good. Oh, my apologies. I was on mute. Excellent. So we're coming to the end of our evening. I have one more Slido poll, and that is, what is something that you've learned from today's workshop? I will also open the floor for questions. We can take time to do our Q&A at this time. If anyone has questions or something that they'd like to share with anyone else. So something that you mentioned, Tashana, was working with young children and being mindful of, again, I guess their need for affirmation and listening, because I feel for some people, they might not be aware of that need for children and youth, especially for older people who might not have worked with or engaged with the youth in a long time. So for me, that was really insightful. I think that that is something that we could all take with us, just being mindful of listening to others and how much they want to share information or bits of their days or their lives with us. I do want to hand over the floor to a special guest who popped in to our meeting, Chetty. He is our counseling lead and operations director. I'm going to open the floor to him for a little bit. Hopefully he has a tip for us. I'm sorry I put you on the spot, Chetty, but I'm hoping you have something to share with our audience before we wrap up for tonight.
Just want to touch base on basically all the topics that you guys already spoke about. When it comes to communication, if you want to know how good you communicate, if you want to be a master at communicating, first of all, you need to ask yourself a lot of questions. You need to ask yourself a lot of questions. And the questions are, am I approachable? Am I too harsh? Do I speak before I think? So those are some of the basic questions that will help you along. When people talking to you and people ask you, you have to try to understand that person. You got to try to put yourself in that person's shoes, in that person's position, so you can understand what that person is talking about. You can understand what they're coming to you about, whether it is your kids, whether it's your friends, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your spouse. It is always good to put yourself in the position of that other person, and always try to avoid the argument in any way possible. But as long as you ask yourself those questions and you get the answers to the questions, you can be a master of communication. You can be a master of any communication skills. So I would not keep you guys long. Sorry, I couldn't be able to turn my camera on. It's not working. But those are just some of the basics to get communication skills up and running. Ask yourself those questions, and you can conquer any skills. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chetty. And I think that's one of our takeaways from tonight, self-awareness and just asking ourselves these questions, being mindful of how we're interacting with others. These are very, very good tips. So thank you for sharing that. Someone else commented, I liked the idea of building up someone that is passive to building their confidence. And that, again, that was an excellent point, Tashana. Thank you so much for sharing that tonight. We don't often think of things such as these, especially when we're dealing with someone whose personality is so different from ours. But it is important to be mindful of the other person we're speaking to if we want to maintain that positive relationship. I will also share that we did get some comments on Slido in the Q&A section. My apologies for the delay in reading these, but I will share these. I've been on both ends, but I'm very good at multitasking, so it can be a judgment we have about how we expect others to communicate with us. And this can also be exemplified if we interrupt someone while they're doing something, yet he or she will remain focused on the conversation and what they they were doing. So I think those comments revert back to while we were starting this event. I think, Tashana, you mentioned being distracted when communicating with others, and how that is sort of your weakness when it comes to communication. So I think that's just someone affirming that that's something they also experience as well. So thank you again, everyone, for sharing your thoughts with us this evening. We are now at the end of our evening. I had fun. I don't know about you, but I hope you had fun as well. Tashana's laughing, so I would assume so. It was a great first event for Revital. We are happy again that you were here to experience this milestone with us. We do have our phone number, our email address, and our website up on the screen. We hope that you will continue to stay in the loop with what we're doing. We're considering launching our newsletter very soon. So if you would like to subscribe, you can send us an email and we can put that on our to-do list and make sure that you are connected with some of the stuff that we have coming up. We do have a feedback form as well that will be sent out after this evening's presentation, so that you can provide us with feedback if you wish, so that when we are planning our future events, we are able to take some of your feedback into consideration and make sure that we're putting on the best events for everyone to enjoy and experience as well. So that brings me to the end. I'm not sure if Chetty or Tashana has a final comment that they would like to share with everyone.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us. We really do appreciate your support. And just hopefully whatever little tidbits we're able to leave with you, hopefully you can apply that and it will be of help to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tashana. Well, and we do have a comment in the chat as well. Stephanie says, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Z, as well. All right. Well, have a great night, everyone. Take care, stay safe, and we hope to see you soon. Good night.